Welcome to the Scoop Order. Happy Sunday. The basketball Bucks beat the bad Wolverines. It might be the last time we see Juwan Howard or Jake Diepler in that arena, so we're excited about that. Spring ball starts tomorrow. Interviews are getting kicked off, and then there's also the Tuesday first practice. Before they hit spring break next week, we're going to get into all that. And is North Carolina, are the Tar Heels the apple of Rob Petitti's eye as the commissioner of the Big Ten? Are they the kind of the domino that's going to bring Duke and North Carolina into the Big Ten? We're going to break all that down. The Oracle is crushing it with expansion news. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for kicking with us on Sunday night. Again, we really enjoy doing this each and every night. If you guys could leave us a like, click subscribe. And again, we emphasize the subscriptions are huge. We're growing faster than any other Ohio State site, faster than most YouTube channels. So thank you guys for doing that for us. So click that subscribe button, send it to your friends. Again, if you guys have a desire to be on these live shows, click the little the alert bell. The alert bell is something that, if it's on your phone, your iPad. I have an alternate YouTube account, and it'll ding when we go live to make sure it's working. So it is actually really cool. If you guys are watching it on your TV, your iPad, your phone, your computer, your tablet, put it in the comments. I'd love to know, how do you guys watch this show? Because I assume a lot of you guys are watching it on an iPhone, a tablet, a smart TV, but it's always fun to kind of see how you guys watch it. It helps us make the show better, if that makes sense, based on what format is the most popular. So we appreciate that. As always, shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. And again, we appreciate you guys so very much on this Sunday night. Nevada, today was a good day. The Buckeye basketball team beat Michigan, so it's always fun to beat Michigan. The girls obviously lost to Caitlyn Clark. She set the record today. Obviously, that's a game that I felt we had no chance of winning. The baseball team won out in Vegas, which is always fun. It's always fun to win in Vegas. They're flying home right now. Commercial on Southwest Airlines. But your thoughts overall on the weekend, and we'll get into the North Carolina Tar Heel expansion news that the Oracle broke today.
Yeah, no, I mean, great weekend. Anytime you beat Michigan in anything, and the way they thrashed them was nice. It couldn't happen to a better guy in Juwan Howard. The women's basketball game was kind of interesting. Caitlyn Clark. I like Caitlyn Clark a lot, but her flopping thing and drawing technical foul, that it's getting a little ridiculous now, and it's kind of embarrassing, frankly. And the idea that she's the all-time leading scorer. No, the all-time leading scorer is Pistol Pete Maravich. Pistol Pete Maravich averaged 44 points a game in college in 83 collegiate games, because when he played, you couldn't play as a freshman. Caitlyn Clark's played 130 varsity games. He played 83. So don't tell me that she's the all-time leading scorer, because the rules have completely changed. They cut off an entire season for him. But Pistol Pete Maravich averaged 44 points a game without a three-point line. So just run that one around in your mind for a little bit, and it's just it's absolutely an astounding statistic when you look at it. But yeah, no, great weekend for the Buckeyes. Got the Cavaliers on tonight against the Knicks. Need to beat them. Knicks they're down Randall, and then they lost Brunson early, so the Cavaliers have got to get it together and win this game. But yeah, spring football starts on Tuesday. We got some press availabilities tomorrow. So from here on out, it's literally the official. This is the last night of the offseason, and now we're into 2024 for good. And it seems like it's flown by since the Cotton Bowl. Seemed like it was yesterday, and I can't wait to get into 2024.
Yeah, it's always interesting when people try to compare players from different eras, because, like, could you imagine if Pete Maravich had the 3-point line? You look at what some of these guys could have done. And honestly, with the lack of physicality in basketball anymore, it's like a totally different game. Like, you look at how, like, a guy like Michael Jordan got hacked in the Jordan rules, and they weren't gonna let him drive the lane without getting him hammered. And now that'd be a flagrant 2. Guys get suspended for what they used to do to that guy. And I think it's a valid point. Like, to score that many points without a 3-point line is simply insane. But it's nice to have the Bucks win again. Ross Bjork was in the house. Gene Smith was in the house for the last time, thank God. So that'll be very interesting to see how it goes. Nevada, I'm going to get your boy right on the screen right now. I had to find a good thumbnail for this. I had to get your boy Mac, return of the Mac Brown. North Carolina is sniffing around the Big Ten. I think that adding Carolina Duke to the Big Ten would be amazing, just because I think for the basketball aspect, obviously excellent. Carolina is a very weird program because they're not traditionally great, but they have had some unbelievable players, some unbelievable talent. When Butch Davis was there, I mean, they had just freaks of nature all across their team. Obviously, they've had Julius Peppers in the past. What would Carolina bring to the Big Ten? And talk a little bit about what Oracle had broken down today. Because again, I think that of all the teams that are left, obviously if Florida State jumps into the boat with the Big Ten, Carolina would be very compelling because beautiful campus, great school, great tradition. Obviously, one of the top three basketball traditions of all time. What would it mean to add Carolina to the Big Ten? You're muted, FYI. Hang on, he's got those. Here, I'll boot him. There we go. He's coming back. I think what Carolina's going to bring though is a lot of pizzazz. I think it's a fun place to go to. All right, mute Buck. What's up?
Newt Buck is here. No, look, the Oracle is the preeminent expert on all things expansion, very highly ranked, very connected to the expansion process. So when he talks about North Carolina, he's always been kind of muted in terms of like North Carolina's kind of they're Southern, but they've got Northern sensibilities, and he wasn't sure which way they're going to break. Well, today, he calls first thing this morning. He's like, look, this is the first time UNC's really been forward, reaching with the Big Ten, asking for exactly what the terms would be, how that, they would work out in terms of full rank membership, and then discussing the possibilities of bringing NC State and Duke with them. Now, look, the idea of bringing NC State and Duke with them, to me, not exciting, but the idea of getting UNC into the Big Ten, that is exciting. And could you see some of these other schools join as partial members, or people that had to do it like an earn-in? I can see that. I can see how that could happen. I can see how that could work. But for UNC to be leaning forward on this, like I said, I think it's really indicative of the fact that they're not waiting now for this ACC thing to be negotiated on the grant of rights. I think it's looked at as kind of a foregone conclusion that this grant of rights is gone, that the ACC is fully in play. And before you scoff or say, well, I'm not so sure about that, remember how quickly the Pac-12 went away. And the Pac-12 literally was one of the thriving best conferences in college football. And then literally in the scope of like 6 months, it's gone, completely gone. So I think the ACC is going that way as well. I don't think there's any question that they're going to be dismantling. And you've got big pieces like Florida State, like Miami, like UNC, like Notre Dame, essentially, that are going to be up for grabs. And I think it's going to be a very, very exciting time to be part of the college football expansion landscape. But UNC leaning towards the Big Ten for the first time since this whole thing started, and that's a very, very exciting development.
I think that the thing people don't realize with conferences is like, the crown jewels of every conference is like two or three teams. And once they leave, it's kind of like the three hot chicks leaving the party. Like all of a sudden you're down to the nitty gritty. How bad do you want to stick together? Like, if for some reason in the Big Ten, say last year's Big Ten, don't do the new one with Oregon and USC. Say last year's Big Ten lost Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State to the SEC or some other conference. Like, what is left of the Big Ten that's desirable to any other conference? Nothing. Michigan State, Purdue, Iowa, Nebraska. And that's the thing is like, when people say, oh, well, like 4 years ago, oh, the Pac-12 is never going to dissolve or disband. And Nevada saying, well, USC and UCLA aren't acting like that. They're acting like they're about to go to the Big Ten. And people are like, oh, how could they ever do that? They are the Pac-12. Well, when the pretty girls leave the party, all of a sudden the party kind of sucks. And that's what it is in the Big Ten. That's what it is in the ACC. In the ACC, if Miami, Clemson, Florida State, UNC, Duke leave, what's left? The riffraff that nobody really wants and have no real value. So again, I just don't think that people realize how, as much as there's this superiority around conferences and stick together and let's do what's good for the best of the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 12, whatever. When there's monsters in that conference, it's like Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. Like they didn't care about Texas Tech and all the other little peons that are in that same conference when they could go out and get theirs. And I think that that's something that just like when you're these major universities and you see the trend that's happening in college football, you see the streaming rights being sold for billions and billions, and every time those things come up, those contracts are going to get bigger and bigger. They're trying to get a bigger piece of the pie. And again, if that means that they have to cut out people that are leeches and smaller programs that aren't quite as desirable, they're going to do it, and they're going to go band together again. Texas and Oklahoma banding together with Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia, like Texas A&M makes total sense because those are way more desirable than being in the old Big 12 with Kansas and some of these turds that you're having to split revenue with. Because again, if I ran a university and we had all these major players out there, I'm saying, look, you gotta, if Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, I don't know, in a dream world, if you said, hey, pick 12 teams, I don't want Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Bama, Georgia, USC. There's certain schools that they just have a lot of cash here with their marketing rights. And again, if they all band together, then everyone else is kind of screwed because everybody wants to be part of that super conference. And again, when the NFL model forms between the Big Ten and the SEC, we've been talking for multiple years. Like I think it's going to be very compelling to see who's left out, who's where, and who are the thing that's going to be really interesting is who are the fringe schools that could be competitive in that top group of 32 or 40 teams that are comprising the SEC and the Big Ten, and who are is there some sort of again in my dreams if I ran college football, I'd say let's give some sort of a model where teams that were at the bottom of the barrel could shift down and teams at the top of the heap in that middle tier shift up, kind of like in European soccer where teams can go from the Premier League to the minor leagues essentially. And because again, like in the Big Ten, I've always thought if we could like shuffle out the bottom couple teams and bring in maybe like the top MAC team like a Toledo, like I think it'd be great because I think all of a sudden like some of those teams would get a lot more serious about football and it'd be better for the overall product. Nevada, with the future NFL model coming, I mean, where do you think this ends up in terms of a numbers ratio? And again, I know this is way out into the future, but like, is it 24 in each conference? Is it 20 and it's like 40 total teams between the Big Ten and the SEC? Because that's clearly where this is moving to, and I think that's why teams like UNC want to jump into the pool with the Big Ten so that they're not left behind. But where do you see that ending up at?
Well, look, I think what people have to remember when they're looking at these teams, when you're talking about 20, let's use 24, for example. Say it's 24 ACC, or it should be SEC, 24 Big Ten. There's not 48 great brands in college football right now. So when everybody's looking at it and they're like, oh, UVA is not great. Oh, Duke's not fantastic or whatever it is. Well, there just aren't that many USCs out there that are available. There's not that many Texases and, Oklahomas and, these premier teams available. So you've got to take who you can. And what you can do is by giving them partial shares or kind of earnouts, as it were, then they can round out the 24 without diluting you fully like they would a full share member. And I think that's what it's going to take to be able to get to 24 each. And I think you need to have at least 48 teams because I just think politically, if you don't have, say you just cut it to 20 and it's only 40 teams, you're going to say only 40 teams are going to be eligible for the college football national championship. And I just think politically you're going to end up in a lot of problems. A lot of people have been playing football for a long time and they're going to feel left out of the game that, that they're not part of the thing anymore. And I just think the more teams that you can include in a credible way, I think the easier this is to sell. Because frankly, as we've talked about in this podcast many times, right now, the Big Ten and the SEC could really just kind of tell everybody else to pound salt. And the only reason they don't do it is because they don't want to look like the big meanies. They don't want to look like the big bullies of college football. They don't want to, draw the ire of, politicians or, whatever else that could kind of mess them up. Because if you do that and you've upset enough people, then this thing you can turn a good thing into a bad thing, and they don't want to do that, so they want to be very careful. But again, when you get to 48 teams, man, you're going to have to take some marginal ones. There's going to have to be some teams that aren't great, and I think the Big Ten realizes that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an arms race. I mean, it'll be fascinating to see where do the Hurricanes end up? Where does Clemson end up? I mean, Clemson seems SEC. Miami would be a dream for the Big Ten, just because I think that like our folks would love to fly down there and watch the games. But Nevada, if you had to project out some other teams past Carolina that would want to come to the Big Ten that would fit with the AAU and everything, who are some other teams that you could see on the cusp of potentially getting into the Big Ten?
Well, as we've talked about Notre Dame, we've talked about Miami, we've talked about obviously Florida State, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Duke. I think they all fit. I think they all fit, to some degree or another. Are they premier brands? No. Are they, full share membership brands? Not all of them. But are they good quality brands that could at least round out a top 24? Yeah, I think so. I think they could. They could for sure.
Totally agree. Well, spring ball starts kind of tomorrow. They start meetings. They have a media availability. Tuesday, practice starts. So the guys will be doing install one tomorrow. Nevada, I know at some positions like tight end, it's going to be an absolute fist fight to see who gets on the field. I'm sure that they're going to get involved with the strength coaches to see, who's had a great winter, who's progressed, and it'll be interesting to see like what kind of a fight there is between certain position coaches and the strength coaches, because sometimes there is a little bit of a difference of opinion on guys and where they stand. Who are you excited to hear about the first week of spring ball? Again, this is, they try to burn up the days where there's no pads on so that when they come back from spring break, they're in full pads and ready to go. This is something that Urban started doing. But your thoughts on the first week of spring ball? Because I'm really excited to see what some of these guys can do.
Well, we've got a schedule, right? We've got a schedule. They've put out a schedule regarding like media availabilities and when practices are. I mean, I know I'd seen something before that kind of laid out the entire thing, and I think on one of that was like a Keenan Bailey versus the strength coach and some sort of the feats of strength, and I think that was yesterday actually, but no, tomorrow I think is going to be a media. I think with the quarterbacks, I think they get the quarterbacks tomorrow. I think they get Lincoln and Devin Brown and Will Howard. So that'll certainly be a lot of fun for sure. But look, I think all the groups are going to be interesting. The O line has just got so many interesting things because I think on the O line's the position where you've got the most guys, you've got the most guys competing for spots, and frankly, you have the most guys that, in my opinion, are candidates to move on in that second portal window. If they're not given an opportunity to play, if they don't feel like there's a path for them to see the field. So, I really want to see the O-line guys. The O-line guys are really one that I'm going to be keeping a careful eye on. And hopefully we can keep these guys around because I know we have a lot of dudes. We have a lot of young dudes. We have a lot of older dudes that haven't had a chance to play. I just want to see which guys are getting on the field and who feels like they've got a chance to start and contribute for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I know it'll be a big time fight. I hope that the strength coaches can win versus some of the position coaches, especially the ones that are gingers. Monday, March 4th, tomorrow, they've got Devin Brown, Will Howard, Lincoln Keenholz, Emeka, Trey Henderson, and Donnie Jackson will be available at 11 a.m. So we'll hear what those guys have to say. Again, I've been coached as a player, and I've also been coached by the media team as a coach. What to say, what not to say, it'll be very pablum. But so it's interesting to see who they make available. Tuesday, first day of practice. Again, no pads, literally not even the pillow pads. So I don't know what you get out of that other than see if guys can run around. So there will be Ryan Day will have a post at about 11. So they're going in the morning. And then after Ryan, it'll be Chip Kelly's first press conference with Ohio State. Nevada, how excited are you for that? Because again, it still doesn't feel right when you read offensive coordinator / QB coach Chip Kelly is in the team reading room after Ryan Day. Again, it's still like a dream to me because he's the guy that I wanted. Again, Todd Finch moved on, and we had a thread on our board where it's like, oh my God, we lost Todd Finch to LSU, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, if we could hire Chip Kelly, I would literally lose every single one of our coaches to get him and have him hire whoever he wants because that's how highly I think of him. But your thoughts on what to anticipate from Chip Kelly this week?
Well, I mean, Chip's famous for. I mean, he'll say what is on his mind. I mean, he's closer to Urban Meyer than he is to Ryan Day for sure. So I think we'll get some quotable stuff out of Chip. I'm not sure how quality the questions will be with Chip, but he's not afraid to speak his mind about stuff. If he is, I think once he gets deeper into spring ball, when he's asked about the progress with the quarterbacks and stuff, when he says it, I would tell people do well to listen to what he says because he's not one of those guys that coach speaks. I mean, he'll say it, he'll lay it out there, and we'll have a pretty good idea of who he thinks is up on the on the pecking list for sure. And maybe early we don't get much, but as it goes along, I think Chip will be in midseason form by the beginning of or the middle of spring ball.
Yeah, I think Chip's going to do work. I'm really excited to see what his impact is on that room. I think that there's some coaches that, frankly, really don't deserve to be in that building right now. And some guys that should probably, sharpen their swords because there's a new sheriff in town with Chip Kelly. So you're not going to fool him the way you might have fooled some other guys. But I'm excited to see what he brings from UCLA. How much he decides to run Will Howard, I think, is the question that everybody's kind of dying to know. But we're going to get into a lot of that. We've got a bunch of super chats. We got a handful piled up, so we're going to get into these. Sloth Nation, thank you for the 5. Happy Sunday, my friends. Can you describe what the difference between spring practices, summer practices are? Also, how's Chip liking OSU? Nevada OH?
IO.
So spring practice is a time for a lot of guys to go out and earn jobs. And again, that's something where I'm just, I've been through spring ball. Once I was established as a player, I hated spring ball. I generally had surgeries, cleanup surgeries where I didn't do much. I didn't do any spring ball in 06 or 07 because I had my knee scoped. 07 I did like the first week, but Jake Ballard threw Lawrence Wilson into my knee and I heard something and I got my knee scoped. So I was out for, I really didn't do much spring ball. I didn't do the spring game. But spring ball is fun because you get to put the screws to the kids because you don't have to play a game until September. So, I mean, if you want to, tax them a little bit and have them scrimmage and get after it, it's fine. If a guy gets hurt, most of the time, unless it's an ACL or an Achilles, they'll be back in time for September. But I think it's a good time to get guys, get guys to run into each other. And again, there's some guys that don't need to do much. I think Urban did a great job with the 1,000 rep club where he would not have, guys like Pat Elflein and Taylor Decker and Ezekiel, the guys that are like kind of made men. They don't have to go do spring ball. But the guys that aren't made men, like Luke Montgomery, George Fitzpatrick, Tico Shikabola, they need 10,000 reps. They need to do reps against Kenyatta, Caden Curry, Edric Houston. Like those guys need to run into each other a lot during the spring. You don't need Jack Story, you don't need JT. Again, those guys came back. They gave you an extra year. They didn't have to give you. And you got to take care of those guys a little bit. But for the young guys, I'm just telling you, it is time to put the screws to them because they didn't play last year. A lot of these guys that they cried because they didn't have enough reps or they didn't start or they didn't have a major role. Like, well, now's the time to go win a role. So I'm really excited to see what some of these guys can do. Excited about right tackle, excited about Will linebacker with CJ Hicks. Because, again, a lot of these guys, they like to talk the talk like, oh, I should have been a starter, I should have been a player. But then all of a sudden, like you put them out there and either they swim like a shark or they sink like the Titanic. And again, I've seen both. Spring ball, if you're not an established player, every day is like the Super Bowl. And again, I've been in position battles where I had to fight and claw to try to win it. And I lost in 04. I thought I should have been starting right tackle, but I was hurt. I came off a shoulder surgery after my freshman year. And then I hurt my ankle in a scrimmage. So I practiced 1 week out of the 4 weeks of spring. And then, I lost the job, going into camp. And then in camp, they kept Tim Schaefer in front of me, even though he was trash. And then I ended up beating him out after 4 weeks where he didn't grade out well. And frankly, wasn't a very good player. And then they finally put me in and we were progressively better, which again, that was kind of a trend in 04 when they didn't start Troy Smith. They didn't start Ted Ginn. They didn't start Anthony Gonzalez. I mean, it was almost insane when you look back at it. And then they didn't start me. and then we all started playing, and then we took off, and we kind of surged towards the end where we went 8-4 after being 3-3, which is trash. But I'm just really excited to see what these young guys can do, because a lot of these guys have been promised a lot, or they've got kind of like this pattern where they think that they're worth something, but when spring ball happens, man, it's dog eat dog, and it's time to go win a spot. So a lot of guys are really excited about it. I'm excited about it. Sloth Nations, again, thank you for the second super chat. Thank you for the 5. Nevada, it feels like UNC has been in SEC lean for a while. What has changed recently? Would love to have them for basketball. I am with you, Sloth Nations. Nevada, what has changed recently to change UNC from an SEC lean to a Big Ten lean?
Well, I think it's the whole research aspect of this, and the research aspect of being part of the Big Ten consortium is something that's it's undervalued by football fans and by sports fans in general because they don't really understand it. But for the people that are in administration and for the people that are writing and going after research grants, I mean it's enormous. I mean, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars. And I think from an academic standpoint, UNC is also coming to the realization that they're just a much better fit with the Big Ten than they are with the SEC. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all going to be, you are who you're affiliated with, and as a big brand like that, as UNC is a big brand, a flagship institution, an AAU member, a very proud academic tradition. I mean, that doesn't really fit with the SEC. I mean, really look at the SEC schools and show me who are the great academic schools in there, and it's hard to come up with any. So I think for them, it's a battle between their academic sensibilities and their Southern sensibilities, and I think the academic and the research stuff is starting to way out, and I think that's why they're starting to lean Big Ten. And I wish we had the Oracle on here because he could probably speak to it a little bit more authoritatively. But he's been always very cautious about UNC and their prospects to the Big Ten, and this is the first time he's genuinely excited about it. Feels like they're leaning forward, and that's a very exciting prospect.
Totally agree. Jared Haddle, the king of Chillicothe, thank you for the 10. I don't have a question, just wanted to donate and pay it forward. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you did too, brother. Let's catch up soon. Love to see you. Steve Jack 8, thank you for the 5. If college football is destined to break away from the NCAA, do these, quote, basketball schools become less attractive? I don't know. I mean, Carolina is good enough in football. I don't feel like they're going to win a national championship in football in my lifetime, but I feel like they're competitive. Not everybody's going to be Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, like teams that can legitimately win a title. You need some filler schools like Carolina, but Carolina, their prestige in basketball is unbelievable. And again, their quarterback's better than anything we had this year with Drake May. So they've got talent. So I don't know. That's a great question, though. I kind of like the whole package, the holistic deal. When you look at what does the school bring, because again, with the Big Ten, academics are first. AAU membership is critical. Nevada, in your opinion, if college football is destined to break away from the NCAA, do these basketball schools become less attractive? Because I just think you have to. It has to be a total, kind of a total audit of what they bring to the conference. It can't just be, well, they're good at this sport or this sport, because that could all change. They might have a great coach. Like Mac Brown's obviously won a national championship before, but you have to look at the university as a whole, as opposed to just being, well, they're good at football, because that can change in like one bad hire, one bad recruiting class, one bad sanction, and they can go into the dark ages. But your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I think people have to remember, how many sports does Ohio State have going on campus? I'm talking men's and women, like 64 or something like that. Like 63 of the sports are going to be administered by the NCAA. The only one that's not is going to be college football. So when you say breaking off for football, remember that's only for one sport. Like the vast majority, 99% of the sports that are still going on at Ohio State are still going to be under the purvey of the NCAA. So I think basketball will be important. Basketball's it's a moneymaker. It's a revenue sport. the NCAA tournament is a big moneymaker for the conferences, for the individual schools, and for Ohio State. So no, I think, I mean, ideally you'd have the best football brand and the best basketball brand. I mean, that's what the Big 12 right now is desperately trying to stay relevant by attracting basketball schools. They're saying, hey, look, we know we can't compete and we know we can't stay alive as a football program, but maybe at least as a basketball program, we can at least, hang in there. So that, they've recognized the fact that basketball may be their path forward. For Ohio State, or in the Big Ten, you've already got these great, basketball programs that also have great football programs. So I think basketball teams are important. Not as important as football, but certainly, 1B right behind it for sure.
Yeah, and again, adding Carolina will never not be exciting. Like, see those colors in the Valley City Arena, I think it'd be great. So I'm very pro Carolina, and plus it's a beautiful part of the country to go visit. My old lady Kim said that was her runner-up to Tallahassee, Florida State. So she obviously has good taste because she married me. So I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt on that. Donald and Karen Rosbeck, thanks for being a Scoop Ultra. Thank you for the 5. Is there any way we can set up closed captioning for hearing impaired? Nevada OH?
IO.
So I just looked into that. I'm going to look into that a little bit more tomorrow. If our episodes are done and uploaded, like yesterday's episode, you can auto-generate closed captions on YouTube. But in terms of like live, I'm not sure. But I don't know how to do that. On this episode, I was really seeing if I can switch that on. But if you watch any of our other episodes that have been up for a day or two, they auto-generate the closed captions. So we apologize for that, but I'll try to find a remedy. Again, I'm not the king of this stuff, but I'm just trying to make it accessible for everybody. So I appreciate that, Donald and Karen. I'm sure you're probably looking out for somebody in the chat because I did get a message about that a couple weeks ago. Sloth Nations, thanks for the deuce. Does the SEC want UVA? If so, why? Well, it'd have to be for academics because UVA is a fantastic school to go to. Nevada, your thoughts. Does the SEC want Virginia? And if so, why?
I don't think the SEC does want Virginia. I think Virginia clearly is a school that, in my opinion, works well with the Big Ten. For all the reasons you talked about AAU membership, you talked about supreme academic reputation, research institution. So no, I think there's lots of reasons why they fit with the Big Ten. But the SEC, I mean, they'd be at best a filler school for sure.
I just Virginia is tough because they don't have any in-state talent, and it's a smaller school, incredible academic reputation, but to have them compete like week in and week out in the SEC just seems like a tall task, and geographically they just don't really make much sense at all. Josh Dillon, aka Nikita Kucherov, thank you for the 10. Hey, Kirk in Nevada, what are y'all's pre-spring playoff standings? And then I'm going to throw in, you threw the records up here. Josh, again, thank you for the 50. Appreciate you, brother, so much. You've got Ohio State 13-0, Georgia 13-0, Florida State 12-1, Utah 12-1, Boise State 12-1, Penn State. I'll go later on the list. I don't know. All the way down to 14 is tough, just because anything can happen. I could imagine, USC, Ole Miss, Bama 10-2. I think Bama's gonna take a little nosedive. I think the 1 seed's Ohio State. I think the 2 seed is Georgia. I agree with you there. Florida State, maybe because their quarterback's back and their quarterback's really good. Utah 12-1, don't know enough about them. Boise State at 5 might be a little rich. Penn State 11-1. See, the one that's crazy to me is Texas at 11-2. I think Texas is going to be much higher than that. Nevada, I don't know if we can do the whole playoff standings because that's a lot. Maybe give me your top 4 in the playoffs, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean it's so tough. So I mean, if you think about the top 4 are going to have to be conference champions. The top 4 ranked conference champions. So I guess the real question comes down to you've got the SEC champion's going to be Georgia. The Big Ten champion's going to be Ohio State. I mean, who's going to win the Big 12? Who's left in the Big 12 to win it?
I mean, does it matter? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
It's
I mean, I think so because then you've got
like Iowa
same.
State, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, and then you've got ACC. Um, I mean, how good's Clemson going to be this year?
I mean, they lost their running back. Uh, they get their wonder kid quarterback back, but I mean, they've been in a tailspin for the last few years, so I don't know. I mean, I know Florida State's gonna be the best team in the ACC probably by far because that quarterback's back. He's really good. Um, but outside of that, I'm not sure. Like Clemson's, eh. I mean, they've been like in a tailspin ever since Dabo dropped the "We don't believe it" NIL card, which is crazy to me. But Miami's always a disaster. They always have a lot of talent on paper, but I have they put it together now. But they're a team that could beat anybody, but they generally don't beat anybody. So that's where they're at. I don't know. I think it'll be fascinating. Like Oregon at 11-2 on this list is very interesting because I think they could be better. I think they could be a one-loss team. Um, I mean, I know you're ranking them as a two-loss team because you're assuming they lose to Ohio State in the regular season and in the championship game because that's how you get Ohio State to 13-0. Um, I don't know how Texas loses too. I think they beat Michigan when they go up there week 2. I think Texas is a top 4 team easily. Probably with Florida State. I'd say Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State, Texas, if you want me to ask the top 4 right now. But again, this is my opinion. We still have to go through spring ball. Guys can get hurt in spring ball. A lot of things can change. But I'd put Texas ahead of Boise State, Utah, even Penn State. I think if you put Texas and Penn State on a neutral field, I think Texas is a 7-point favorite easily. Nevada, do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, and I think that's what's going to make this year so interesting because I think we're both of the consensus that if you look at the top 4 teams in the country, just from a talent standpoint, that Oregon's right there. But then Oregon's got to play Ohio State twice this year, and so I mean, Oregon could be a great team, but could have 2 losses. And conversely, Ohio State could get tripped up somewhere along the way too. So the Big Ten's really going to be it's going to really be a battle in terms of very top heavy with Oregon and Ohio State kind of battling out there. It'll be interesting to see how that does affect the seedings because that's one of those things where the Big Ten championship game, it's not Iowa anymore, it's not Purdue anymore, it's not Wisconsin anymore. It's going to be a big dog, and winning or losing that game could very well be it will be the difference between getting a seed and a bye in the first round and playing in the first round. So that Big Ten championship game has never have been more important than it is this year because it's literally going to determine first round bye.
Yeah, I think that people don't realize like what it's going to mean to have a real team in the Big Ten championship because like Ohio State's avoided that every time they've made it. Michigan's, I mean, because it's always been Purdue, Northwestern, Iowa. Now it's going to be Oregon or it's going to be Michigan or it's going to be a team that is going to be a monster. And again, like that's going to be the really exciting thing is to see, can they really run the table and they got to go play a real championship? Because again, without the divisions, man, it's going to be wild in the Big Ten. We got another one. This is actually a great question, Pooh Beard. I've gotten this a lot. Nevada, Pooh Beard, thanks for the deuce. Thanks for being an ultra member. Thanks for being awesome on the board. What 3 true freshmen lose their black stripes first? So, really, it's what 2 after JJ Smith. But your thoughts on that?
I mean, Edric Houston's got to be number 2. I mean, Edric is he's just a man child. And can I go with Julian Sand or does he count?
Yeah, he's a freshman. Of course he counts.
Yeah. I think I got to go Julian Sand then. I mean, they like him so much. He does everything the right way. But I mean, those 3 are really kind of the king bees of the class. They're just different level guys. Now that doesn't always, equate itself to black stripe removal. But if you're looking for who are the 3 A+++ kids in the class, it's JJ, it's Edric, and it's Julian for sure.
All right, I'm going to look up someone different just because I kind of know how this goes sometimes. And, of course, you take the 3 highest rated guys in the class because why wouldn't you? I put JJ in the top three, but sometimes they do something dumb. It'll be like some linebacker or some. It's usually not an offensive lineman. Peyton Pierce has had a foot injury, so he'll be out. Um, but like when you look at the guys that are, I mean, I don't know how you take anybody other than the guys that you're talking about because it's like Leroy Roker's not here. Witten's a tight end. He's not going to play much. Van Sickle's not here. LeBlanc isn't going to play much. Dominic Kirks isn't here. Mylan Graham is a guy who's a stud, but I don't know. Sam Williams-Dixon, no. He's not getting enough carries. Eric Benson, no. Jalen McLean, no. Deontay and Devontae Armstrong, no, because they'll be with the threes. Miles Lockhart, Garrett Stover, Peyton Pierce is hurt, no. Ian Moore, Bryce West, James Peoples, Aaron Noland, no. Maybe somebody like Bryce or Aaron Scott if they just ball out in camp mode. But then you throw in Julian Sane above those guys. I don't know. Like to me, it could be maybe an Aaron Scott or a Bryce West if they're good on special teams or they excel in one-on-one drills or whatever. But the hardest part for Julian Sane is it's hard to lose your black stripe when the threes don't get a ton of reps, and if you're splitting them with Aaron Noland, and you're splitting them maybe with Lincoln Keenholz, I just don't know how many reps he's going to get. Again, it's not that he's not talented, it's not that he's not the future of the program, but a lot of times when you're the new freshman, fourth or fifth quarterback behind Will Howard, Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, you might not have enough reps in a game, unless he balls out in a scrimmage and loses it, which could happen. It's hard really to get that clout where they say, oh, we got to take that black stripe off, because the way he goes down with the black stripe is that Urban put the black stripe on to kind of say, hey, you're not a Buckeye yet. You got to earn the removal of the black stripe. And so if guys would go out and ball out on special teams or go knock somebody's head off in a drill, and then it would start the conversation in the staff room, hey, let's take this kid's black stripe off or this kid's black stripe off. And then, well, has he earned it? How's he been grading out? What's his attitude like? It's not just some, spontaneous decision where they're like, oh my God, like Devin Brown or whoever. Aaron Nolan had this amazing practice. Let's go take a stripe off right after practice. A lot of the black stripe stuff is preordained. It happens in the meeting room at, they practice in the morning now, but it happens in the meeting room the afternoon, the day before, and they say, well, let's take James Peoples off. He's had 4 good days of practice, great attitude. He's got the 4.0 his first quarter, first semester, midterm. So let's take his stripe off. He's a grown man. He's doing great. So a lot of it's preordained. It's not again, you don't just go out and have some amazing practice or run or tackle or whatever, and they take your stripe off. So, but it'll be interesting. I mean, I feel like JJ's got a lot of momentum, but he might not get the reps or the looks or some of it's timing too. It's not just, how good you are. It's do you have the right quarterback throwing you the ball, feeding you? Do you have the right opportunity to make plays? I think a lot of that has to do with just circumstance, frankly. Descending thing for the 5 with the mic in the helmet rule. If a player with the mic goes out during the game, can someone else get the mic? Absolutely. Yeah, if one guy comes out, again, with James Laurinaitis, who was a perfect example when he played for the Rams, he had the green dot, and his backup had the green dot. So if James is out of the game because he breaks a shoelace or sprains an ankle or something worse, the guy behind him is coming on with the green dot. And I'm not sure if it would be Cody Simon's backup or if they give it to CJ Hicks or give it to Sonny Styles. I'm not sure how that would work on defense, but I'm sure teams have if you're maybe the starting wall linebacker, but if Cody Simon breaks a shoelace or sprains an ankle, maybe CJ bumps over to Mike and then they put Gabe Powers in at will, or they put Sonny Styles in at will. They always have these kind of things organized so that, hey, if this guy is out, who goes where and how do we do it? And then now who has the microphone? So yeah, someone will always get the mic. In every snap, there's going to be a guy with the mic, even if it's 77-0 and you get your third string in, that backup middle linebacker will have a mic in his helmet going forward. Nevada, do you agree with the mic in the helmet rule? If a player with the mic goes out during the game, someone else gets the mic. I believe that's how it's going to work. It's the same as in the NFL, but your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but that's, like you said, it's going to take some coordination and some getting used to, because it's brand new. So inevitably, there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some technical screw ups. There's going to be some things where guys are running out there and we're trying to wonder who's the guy with the green dot. But yeah, it's a brave new world in college football with this stuff with helmet communication, and they're going to have to get used to it because they haven't done it before. But yeah, in theory, there's always a guy on the offense or the defense that's got the helmet communication thing going on, and Ohio State's just got to make sure that guy's out there and that thing's activated and ready to roll.
Yeah, I totally agree. Jared, I do not know if this is breaking right now or if this is just speculation. Nevada, the Chicago Bears allegedly are getting rid of Justin Fields. Again, I just checked Pro Football Talk. I did not see that. There are heavy rumors he's going to the Falcons. Um, but I don't know. I mean, you've gone back and forth on this. It's not because I have a feeling some type of way with Justin Fields as much as resetting the block with Caleb Williams. And again, like the things that are the moving parts for me is what packages have been offered for that number one pick for Caleb Williams, um, and what can you get for Justin Fields? Those are the two things I look at. I think Justin Fields is a better quarterback. I think he's a better leader. I think he's tougher than Caleb Williams. If you put a gun to my head today and said, Kirk, you have to win an NFL game with your family's life on the line, like this year, I'd say give me Justin Fields. I love Justin Fields' mentality. He's a warrior. He played with a cracked rib against Clemson. He's a monster. But if you want to go holistically through the course of an NFL franchise, is he worth paying the fifth, the 45 million a year? I don't know. That's the question. Nevada, your thoughts on Fields again? Jared Spooner's super chat. Again, appreciate you. Thanks for the deuce, man. Bears getting rid of Fields is crazy. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, look, there's a lot to unwind here, so I'm going to jump around on a number of different topics. First of all, I'm a Packers fan, so I don't really want the Bears to do the right thing, but the Bears should absolutely trade down, keep Fields. They probably wouldn't have to pay him that much on this contract. It's not like he's going to break the bank. He's not going to get a Daniel Jones kind of deal. I think they could get him, relatively moderately priced, and keep him around. Trade down, get Marvin, get Joe Alt, you take Michael Penix, take whatever, and do that. But it seems like they're bound and determined to try to get their guy and try to do it with Caleb Williams. What's the trade market for Justin Fields? I'd be shocked if it was a second round pick. I mean, I'd be absolutely shocked. So maybe it's a second, maybe it's a conditional second, maybe it's a third conditional to a second if he achieves some milestones or something like that. But it's not going to be a first round pick. There's no way they're getting a first round pick for Justin Fields. Now, but this leads me to my next topic, which is JJ McCarthy, because I saw a mock draft today that had him going ninth to Atlanta. And I want to say this is not just Michigan. My favorite player for the Packers, one of my favorite players of all time, was Charles Woodson. Loved Charles Woodson as a player. And, he was, mighty Wolverine. Hated him when he was in college. Loved him as a pro. Desmond Howard, Desmond the Doofus. Loved him when he won Super Bowl MVP returning kicks for the Packers and beat the Patriots almost single-handedly with his kick returning game. So I'm not just blinded to I love Rashawn Gary. And didn't think he was going to be a terrific pro, but it turned out to be a really, really good player for the Packers. So I can appreciate Michigan players when they get up there. I have to say, I just feel like I'm in bizarro world when I see these evaluations of J.J. McCarthy because I just don't understand it. I've watched that kid play in high school. I watched that kid play in college, and he can't throw the ball down the field with any type of accuracy. And I know all quarterbacks, when they're pressured or harried or have people on them, they're not as effective as they are when they have a clean pocket. That goes without saying. But he's especially awful when he's pressured. And you never have a clean pocket in the NFL. So I do not see any world where he is worth a top 10 pick. I think his peak comparable in the NFL would be like Drew Lock or something like that. But I think he's much more likely to be Chase Daniel, career, clipboard holder and visor wearer and do that. And I just don't see how that's a top 10 pick. But please, I mean, honestly, and I mean, dead sir, what is it that I'm missing? Because I feel like it's clearly something that I don't understand about his game. Maybe he's been saving all his ability to throw downfield. Like he's like, I'm not going to show it until I get to the NFL. And he's been playing the long game and playing possum for 8 or 10 years now. But somebody explain to me why he's a top 10 pick in the draft.
Do you want me to explain that, or do you want to explain it? You want me to do it?
No, I can't explain it. So you got to explain it. You got to explain it to me.
I think it's because evaluators are stupid. They're idiots. They get obsessed with intangibles and, oh, he's a winner. Because again, he won a national championship, won 15-0 last year with the best line in college football, the best O-line, 2 really good running backs, great defense, and they didn't ask him to do much. So people that are stupid, aka you have to understand, like the people that evaluate football, like in terms of general managers, scouts, and at this point, like when you get down to the nitty gritty, if you're talking top 10 pick, it's the GM. Like the GM might have a little bit of influence from a scout that's a hardcore scout, but the GM is making the call. And if you look at their resumes, they are some of the dumbest, laziest, never played the game, no clue type human beings I've ever met. Again, Ryan Poles has the number 1 pick in the draft. And I am not being a hater. I played Ryan Poles. If you guys want to go back to the Wayback Machine, 2008, the final preseason game, in the second half of the game, we're playing the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. Ryan Poles was my right guard. And again, nice person, played at Boston College, and he played like a Boston College guy. Like he was soft, nice guy. And again, you can say whatever you want about me. Again, I'm not a hater. I don't want to be the Bears GM or anything, but like Ryan Poles being like a talent evaluator, I mean, he was a very nice guy, but he was not a guy where when we were leaving and he got cut the next day, I made the team. I would have never been like, wow, I can't wait for 15 years to go by when he's going to be the general manager of this team at Hallis Hall. So I've worked with a lot of guys that have been scouts, that have played at Ohio State. They've worked at Ohio State. And I swear to God, I swear to Christ, they're not impressive people. They're not people where I'm like, oh my God, please teach me more about football. A lot of them are douchebags. They don't know the game. They don't know what toughness looks like. They don't know. And they get intoxicated on things like, well, he was a winner. Oh, he went 15-0. Oh, he has a huge arm. Like the Milton guy who threw an 80-yard bomb. Someone's gonna take him in like the end of the first round and say, oh, but look at his intangibles. Oh, we can coach him. And again, coaches are also exceptionally arrogant at the NFL level because they love to evaluate traits and physical prowess, and they'll say, ooh, I can coach that up. Ooh, that guy's got a howitzer for an arm. We can have him. I'll come in here. I'll fix his footwork and how he could read movement keys and how he could do a full field read. He'll do all that, and that's how coaches are. But again, JJ McCarthy will be a fraud. He'll be a bust. I mean, again, it's kind of like I don't like doing this because it's an Ohio kid, but it was like Mitch Trubisky. Like Mitch Trubisky, for whatever reason, Ryan Pace, and I have a great source inside the Chicago Bears, and he's like, oh, our GM thinks he's going to be the next Drew Brees. And like, Mitch Trubisky's a very nice kid, great family, Mentor, Ohio, a kid that we offered after, I believe JT was in the same class. And like, but like, I watched this film at Carolina and I was never like, oh my God, let's watch this kid. And he ends up going 2 overall ahead of Deshaun Watson. Like, I thought Deshaun Watson was the best player in that draft other than Myles Garrett. Deshaun was the guy that won the national championship, carried Clemson on, kind of, made Clemson rise to prominence with how he played. And, they waxed us 31-0. But for whatever reason, these GMs, they get intoxicated by upside, intangibles, physical ability. So Mitch Trubisky started like 20 games in college. He was a redshirt junior, left early. and they're just like, oh, well, he's going to be, look at all of his upside. Imagine if he starts 50 games in the NFL, how good he'll be. And you get nice players still hanging out in the league, but he's not a guy that you take over Deshaun Watson's, let alone Patrick Mahomes. But again, it happens every year. Again, the 49ers, we had a nugget. We had a lot of information on Justin Fields going to the 49ers that year, and they ended up going with Trey Lance. And that was when they were looking at Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. And, Nevada, we have great sources in the network of agents, CAA, Athletes First, the top dogs in all of agencies. And they felt like Justin was going to San Francisco. I was like, if he goes there, they might win 5 Super Bowls. Because imagine Justin Fields being on the 49ers instead of Trey Lance or Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo. Would you have a true difference maker in that offense? It'd be scary. But they've got a guy who's just a game manager right now. But I think it's going to be fascinating to see where a guy like JJ McCarthy, who's so limited. Again, it's like people, and I'm not a quarterback expert. I'm an offensive line guy. I understand defense really well. I'm not some guy that can just, identify the whip in a quarterback's arm, even though I've been around great quarterbacks. But people told me for the last 2 years that Drew Aller was the best quarterback to come out of Ohio in, decades. And I watched him in the horseshoe go 1 for 13 on third down, terrified. Like I'm talking, I've never seen a player. It was like they were getting ready to feed him to the lions in the middle of the Coliseum, with Julius Caesar standing in the dais. And people told me how great Drew Aller was, and oh my God, how are we ever going to survive? He's going to Penn State. We can't flip him after years transferred out. We try to get him back, and how are we ever going to survive? And I watched that kid. I was like, he is hot trash. And he reminded me of a quarterback that I played with that was trash. And I saw him after 5 minutes. I could say, this guy can't play. That's just my opinion. I think JJ is going to be. He's that fashionable guy. He's a winner. He'll say all the right things. He'll interview well. But he'll be a disaster for whoever takes him. Nevada, your thoughts on that? Because I think it's just so obvious to me.
Yeah, no, it's so obvious that I just, sometimes you just have to really wonder what other people are thinking. And, these guys they're betting on, billion-dollar assets, and the quarterback position is the most important position. I just think that the quarterback position in general is overvalued in the NFL right now. And I know that's sacrilege. I say that, and people are going to like, oh, Nevada, you couldn't be more wrong. You can't win without a quarterback. I've always maintained that there's lots of different ways to get a starting quarterback in the NFL. That you can get a quarterback via free agency. You can get a quarterback via the draft, or later in the draft. You can get a quarterback via trade. There's lots of different ways to get a quarterback that you don't have to reach at number 1 or number 2 and take a Baker Mayfield or take a Trey Lance or take a Mitch Trubisky. I mean, it's one thing to draft Trey Lance over Justin Fields. It's another thing to trade 3 first-round picks to take Trey Lance. I mean, that's just just criminally bad. But hey, teams do it every year, and it seems to keep going on. But this year's JJ McCarthy one will be fun, and I think Justin Fields is a big piece of that. Depending on where he's going to end up and how that's going to work out. So we'll all watch that during the draft.
Yeah, like you said, if you go back and look, and again, you don't have to go back in time, but I mean, when these teams pay a king's ransom to trade up, again, like the Bryce Young trade will go down as one of the greatest trades in history for the Chicago Bears because they gave up that spot. Bryce Young is going to get beat to death in Carolina. They got DJ Moore. They got the first round pick this year. They got a first round pick last year, and they got mid round picks, let alone, the 49ers deal where they could have taken, I don't know, if they just stay there and they don't take Trey Lance, they could take Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase. I mean, it's just like the most unbelievable pack of dudes ever right after that pick that were surefire guys. Penei Sewell. I mean, guys that were just no brainers, and they took Trey Lance, who they traded for, a basket of fruit like a year or 2 years after they took him. It's just insane. And Tony Turley, my man, we had a nice 30-minute conversation today. Great talking to you, my friend. Thanks for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for the 20. Gentlemen, any inside information on whether the league will target referees from the West Coast to add to the refereeing roster to keep the whiners from USC quiet? Nevada, OH?
I-O.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that. I think that they're just trying to get the best and brightest. I think that it would make sense to have some guys from the Big Ten out there on the West Coast, so you don't have to fly guys all over creation. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they add to the roster as the games are expanding. Nevada, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think they've already done that. I believe they added like 12 referees from the pack that they brought over. Because remember, when you're added teams, so you've got teams, you've got games, you've got geography. There's lots of reasons to do that. Um, Obviously, over time they won't be seen as Pac-12 officials, but it's all going to be about the Big Ten. But no, I believe I know they've added at least double digits. It might be 10, it might be 12, but it's a pretty substantial number.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they poach from the Big 12. 'Cause again, this is like the good thing about when you add these schools is you can get a little bit of feedback on who are the officials we need to go after because it's not just expansion for schools and conferences. Like some of these officials they want to be a part of the big show, which is going to be the SEC and the Big Ten, and not the little shows that are going to kind of evolve after that. Sunny N, thank you for the deuce. Do you think the job is Howard's? Hope it's not Devin. Yeah, I think it's Will Howard's by a long shot. Again, there's a lot of smoke around Devin. Potentially, I mean, he's got to fight. I mean, again, he knows the offense better than Will Howard. Again, if Will's been cracking the books for the last couple of months like he should be, like a pro, it won't be an issue. But, Devin's been out there getting physical reps, game reps, and that's way different than what Will Howard's been able to do. I'm sure he's been throwing and catching with the receivers, but there's nothing like an actual game rep where you have a real pass rush breathing down your neck. Nevada, do you think it is Will Howard's job to lose?
Well, it's definitely his job to lose. They didn't spend the money that they did and make the kind of commitments that they did to not give him the job to lose. Now, is it his job? Well, certainly not. Like, he's going to have to, win that. He's going to have to win that in the spring. He's going to have to win that in the summer. He's going to have to win that in the fall. And again, gun to my head, do I think he will? Yeah, I absolutely believe that he will. But I mean, Devin's been competing. I mean, Devin's not going in there. He doesn't have the mopey face. He doesn't have the woe is me. I can't get this done. Oh, they brought in Will Howard, and I'm never going to play at Ohio State. I mean, this guy's got a chipper attitude. He's a gung ho kind of kid. Is he good enough to be the guy at Ohio State? There are times when I watch him practice, and I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that he is, but it has not translated to the game. So, is that a concern? Is injury the excuse / reason? Yeah, and it's a real good one. But at some point, you got to get past that. At some point, you got to stay healthy. The best ability is availability, and for Devin, he's going to get a chance. But yeah, gun to my head, do I think it's Will Howard's? Yeah, I think it's his to lose, but I think it's gonna be a fun battle. And best guy. I don't need to say this. But I know we're all rooting for whoever the best is guy to win, but I really do think it's going to be Will Howard.
Yeah, I totally agree. Josh Dillon, thank you for the 5. The reason I have Texas 11 and 2 is because they played Georgia twice and lose twice. Josh Dillon is our new bracketologist. He doesn't even know that yet, but you are now our bracketologist on BuckeyeScoop.com. Makes total sense. Again, those will be battles. Texas and Georgia head up is going to be one of the game of the years. I hope Texas beats those guys by 1,000. I'm talking about Michigan. Nevada, do you agree you put Texas 11 and 2 a little bit further down the playoff hunt because they lose to Georgia twice next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. Again, we've talked about the Big Ten, going away from the leaders and losers, East and West, and whatever the hell it was. But look, the SEC said the same thing. So the SEC is going 1 versus 2, so that game is going to be a big game. It's going to be an important game, and it very well could be a rematch between Texas and Georgia. Like I said, that game becomes like a pseudo first round playoff game because you win that game and you're automatically going to have a bye in the first round. You lose that game and you have no path to getting a bye in the first round because it's only conference champions. So it's going to be exciting football for sure. A Big Ten championship game that maybe lost its luster is certainly going to regain it now. So same thing with the SEC.
Kios Washington, thanks for being Scoop Ultra. Thanks for the deuce. My stupid Bears. I see the bear and I see the tears. I loved the Bears. When I played there, it was a great. It's like when you're with the Bears in Chicago, man. It is, especially at 22, greatest thing in the entire world. So I can't hate on the Bears. Ryan, and again, Ryan Poles, who's the guy I was cracking on, Bad Body Poles, who was on our team. Um, Literally, he made a great trade last year, so it'll be interesting to see what he does with Justin Fields or Caleb Williams this year. But I can't hate on the Bears, man. I liked being there. I wanted to stay there. The GM tried to sneak me out and put me on waivers for a day, and I got claimed. But I wanted to stay in Chicago for my whole career, and my line coach loved me, and he was. I'll say a quick 2-minute story. So I got cut on a Monday, and my agent told me I was getting cut, and so the thing that they were going to do is they were going to keep me on the roster until after 4 o'clock. So, excuse me, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Tuesday's transaction Tuesday in the NFL. That's when, if you're on the roster Tuesday after 4 o'clock, you get your full paycheck. So Jerry Angelo, who's a Youngstown guy, said, "Look, Kirk, I like you, but we want to bring in Fred Miller. He's a little bit older, which is fine. Whatever. We're going to bring you back in practice squad." I was good with it. So I was like, "Well, when do I have to come back?" And they're like, "Well, they're going to cut you Tuesday at 4. You're going to get your full game check, so I'll get my full money, and I won't go down to practice squad, pay for another week." So they cut me after 4. And I was like, "Well, when can I come back?" I was like, "You can't come back to practice until next Monday." So I had it was a Tuesday at 4, and I had 5 days where I wasn't allowed in Hallis Hall. And so I said, "Well, I'm just going to go back to Columbus because Ohio State's going to play USC. It's 2008. I had cable and a bed at my old apartment that I was getting ready to move out of to move to Chicago. And I'm there for a night. And the next morning, it was Wednesday, that's the first day of work when you're an NFL player. My offensive line coach, Harry Heaston, who I love to death, called me at I don't know, 9:45 in the morning when I was in Columbus. And Coach Harry used to say the F word more than any human being I've ever heard in my life. And he said, "Kirk, where the F are you? What are you doing? Why the F aren't you here?" And I said, "Coach, I got cut yesterday. I'm literally not allowed to be in the building. I can't work out. I can't come to practice. I can't come to meetings. I got cut. And they cut me after 4, so I'm not allowed in until next Monday." And he said, "You got cut?" And I was like, "Yeah, coach. They cut me at 4 o'clock yesterday, 4:01 yesterday. They processed it, and it was done." He's like, "I had no idea." And I was like, that's when I knew that the NFL was effed up, is when my position coach, who loved me and was a great coach, one of the best line coaches I've ever had, literally said he had no idea that I had been released. He thought I slept through my alarm. I went out on a bender. He was going to rip me like I was a young rookie. And I'm like, "Coach, I'm literally not allowed in the building." So that's when I knew the NFL was a little weird, when the GM didn't even tell the O-line coach that I'd been cut. But hey, I was there for it. It was fun. It was a wild ride in my NFL career. And for those of you guys that come to our meet and greets, and when we have a couple Scoop meetups, I'll tell you some stories I'm not going to put on a podcast, but there's some wild stuff that goes on in the NFL. And I was here for it. I was young. I had a good time, but it was crazy. D Sunny, thank you for the 10. Spooner's question made me ask, is it that hard for these NFL franchises? If I bought an NFL franchise and handed the keys to Kirk in Nevada, ooh, I hope it's in Vegas, would you have us in playoff contention every year? If it's the Vegas Raiders, we'd probably win the Super Bowl every year. I'm just saying. But yeah, I think absolutely we would. I mean, it's not really that hard if you know what you're doing and you can evaluate talent, which most of these guys can't. Nevada, if D Sunny wins 3 Powerballs in a row, probably 10 Powerballs to get to $1 billion or $5 billion, whatever the Raiders cost. If he bought us an NFL franchise and handed the keys to Nevada and Kirk, would we have him in the playoffs every year? Well, it depends on what our roles was. Because if it was me in Nevada and Nevada got to call the show, he'd probably draft JJ McCarthy and hire Jim Knowles as the head coach. But if I'm running it, I think we'd be in good shape. But your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I would. I'd draft JJ McCarthy twice, maybe. Draft him and then draft him in the second round again, just to make sure that we got him. But look, I got into the hockey business a while ago, and I don't even know how to skate. I don't even know how to skate. I'm not a hockey player. I don't even know how to skate. But I know how to put together organizations. I know how to win, and we never missed the playoff. And we had the winningest major junior team in the history of major junior hockey. So I would dare say that if you and I are running an NFL team, you know what? Winners win. We would win. We'd find a way. I think it's about being smart and yeah, having good people and learning from your mistakes. I think we'd learn really, really quickly. And I have no doubt that we would win at the NFL level because I know the people that are running some of these teams, and it's embarrassing. I mean,
Well,
let's face it. I
good.
mean, Mark Davis. Mark Davis is the owner of the Raiders,
Your boy.
and I don't want to use the word. I don't want to use the bad word, but he's not very smart. Okay, let's just put it that way. He's not. If you've met him, you realize. I mean, and I'm not kidding. He's barely functioning. I mean, he's barely there, and he owns an NFL team. Owns an NFL team. So could I win? Yeah, no doubt. I could win, would win, no doubt about it. Even
Well,
with Barton with me, I would still win.
it would be fun, man. But I'm telling you, look, that's the thing. Is like most of these owners they inherit the teams. You know, outside of guys like David Tepper, who's insane, but you don't have many like shrewd business guys that have any sort of football background that have an even keeled mind. Because again, like David Tepper with Carolina is going to be a disaster. Like he fired Frank Wright 12 games into his first year. Um, like he hired the offensive coordinator from Carolina. I got another guy who doesn't have a big personality, couldn't control. Like I was praying to God that Vrabel didn't get that job. I'm like, oh my God, Mike Vrabel would absolutely choke slam. He would jackknife powerbomb David Tepper through the table. Because David Tepper, for those of you guys that don't know, Google the name David Tepper, DavidTepper. He is absolutely insane, but he's also the richest owner in the entire NFL. He's richer than Shad Khan, Jerry Jones, Clark Hunt, all these guys that you hear about. Like David Tepper is way richer than those guys. He's a Pittsburgh guy, blue collar guy. He was really happy at Golden Sachs. Went and started his own fund, made a fortune. I mean, he's Looney Tunes. But I think that the problem with all these NFL teams is that the people that run them, they inherit it from their parents. So they don't have a background in sports or business or running an organization. They just happen to be Lucky Sperm Club, which again, that's fine. I mean, there's no jealousy here, but it's just like they don't really know how to run an organization and people. And a lot of times they just get lucky. You know, like Jim Irsay thinks that good dude, a lot of issues, whatever. But he happened to be the worst team in the league the year that Peyton Manning came out. So he has Peyton Manning for, 16, 17 years. They won a Super Bowl. And it kind of just cashes in his whole legacy that he happened to be bad at the right time and he got the right guy. But I think if we ran it, the thing is like there's certain things you don't spend money on, certain positions you don't spend money on, and then there's some categorical things like in sports where if you're gonna suck, you might as well suck all the way. Like the Chicago Blackhawks are the worst team in the NHL. They got Connor Bedard. They're gonna be the worst team in the NHL again this year. They want to get multiple high picks because that's how you truly tear it down and build it back up in a salary cap era. And I think that's what the Bears are trying to do. I mean, they tore it all the way down. They traded everybody. They got rid of everybody because if they would have paid Roquan Smith or some of these guys, like for what, so that we can go, 7 and 10 instead of 4 and 13 or whatever it is, 17 game season. It doesn't mean anything unless you win the Super Bowl. So you might as well tear it all the way down, which the Bears did. And the Bears have a lot of stockpiling of picks. They made some great trades getting Montez Sweat. It'd be interesting to see if they do a quarterback, but they've got a lot of upside there. And again, they get the right guys. They get a couple good free agents. Like that could be a contender quick in a division that frankly isn't really that strong outside of the Lions and the Packers. Corey Flusy, thanks for the deuce. Josh Gattis throwing shade at Michigan is great to see. Maybe the least surprising thing of all time. Nevada, your thoughts on Josh Gattis?
Well, what did he say? Did he say something?
I have no idea. I'm gonna look real quick because I don't know. I do not know what he said. Is it God, Zach hates Gattis so bad. I gotta text him and see what he
Yeah,
said. Let me see
hates
if it's in
him.
the chat. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was something. Because I've been getting these texts all day where people there was a podcast that was like naming us and saying that we were tilted because of Michigan and we couldn't function. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Gattis said. So I'm just gonna probably pass on this one, but I'm looking right now to see if I can find it. If you guys have it in the chat, go ahead and post it real quick. Josh Gattis accuses the NCAA of violations. Here we go. Blames admissions for James Xavier Worthy decommitment. All right, so I found this out on 3. So here we go, Nevada. Xavier Worthy opened up some old wins for Michigan fans, who obviously he decommitted from. Josh Gattis is out of pocket. Okay, here we go. Here's Gattis. It's time this BS ends. The slander has crossed the line for too long. Gattis wrote on Twitter, of course, because the best place to respond for everything is always Twitter when you're a coach. Don't make up excuses for admission, or how about looking to being on campus during COVID? Want to keep on? Ooh. So, yeah. So I think the thing that was like the original rumor is that Gattis, many Michigan fans blame Gattis as a nasty rumor popped up about involvement with the family, which again, you guys can read into that as you would. Um, so again, like right here it says, as a nasty rumor popped up about his involvement with the family, Gattis has apparently had enough of that instead of shoveling the blame onto Michigan's admissions department. So, and then he keeps going. Gattis, sounds like you need others to speak for you, Gattis wrote. I've taken the high road too long, and others slander my integrity and family. Again, here's more Gattis. Asked why admissions said they wouldn't require an ACT, but denied mid-year because of an ACT 4 days before enroll. Do you want the violations too? Emails, question mark. Ooh, boy. Then former coordinator also joins. No bags, just receipts. The rivals reporters know the truth. Go dig them up for the NCAA. Have fun, but leave my name and family out of your mouth. So yeah, I think he's trying to detail. I think there was some sort of a rumor that like Josh Gattis was like involved with Xavier Worthy's mom or something crazy like that. And again, if I'm wrong, go ahead and put that in the chat if I'm wrong. But it was something like that where it was something wild and crazy and internety and very message boardy. But you know how it is like Nevada. Like a lot of these rumors, someone starts it and then it's like a little tiny flame and then the gas gets thrown on and it just turns into an inferno. That was like one of those inferno rumors, and it could have happened. I don't know. I don't trust Josh Gattis. I would never hire Josh Gattis. But your thoughts on that? Because he's T-boning Michigan. Obviously, he's got a lot of bad blood there. For a guy that just broke the combine record for the fastest 40 of all time. What are your thoughts?
Well, it'd just be interesting. You always kind of waited to see if there was going to be a whistleblower with Michigan and
Oh yeah.
somebody kind of come in and start, digging up the bodies and doing that. And I mean, I can see it starting to happen. I mean, and no, the problem with that, I mean, the veil of silence that goes on that is not because anybody loves Michigan. It's just because the coaches have kind of this unwritten rule that you just don't rat on each other. And so if you're known as rat boy, that probably doesn't help your career in terms of getting a job going forward and stuff like that. But I could see some of these guys getting pushed to the edge and kind of coming out with it. And like I said, the Michigan program is so rife for this just because it's so dirty. It's so, it's got so many, problems within the Michigan program right now, from hockey to basketball to football. Take your pick. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see somebody come out and start blowing the whistle on them. I think it's probably long overdue.
Well, I think the hardest part is like when you start running your mouth about something like this, like how hireable are you going forward? Like when people are looking for a wide receivers coach or looking for a coordinator, passing game guy, whatever Josh Gattis is, like this guy, when he's running his mouth on Twitter, you look like a complete loose cannon. You look like a guy that nobody can trust. You can't really discuss what's really going on inside the program because you might get angry one day and you might go somewhere else. You might air the dirty laundry out. And I think it's a terrible look if you're in that profession because, again, I think something like this should be kept in house, even if it is true. And I think that people that are looking to hire you, they're going to look into that and say maybe let's find somebody that's a little bit less tilted, someone that's a little bit less hostile, volatile, talkative. Again, if guys get triggered on Twitter by random idiot fans on a message board or on Twitter, like, why would you ever want to hire that guy to be, kind of aligned with you in your inner circle of your coaching sanctum, in my opinion? So that's my opinion. I've sat in that room, in the staff room. A lot of crazy stuff gets said. And if you want to have a livelihood, you keep it in the staff room. That's why they have Ryan Day has a big sign in the room that says, what we say here stays here. And that's like one of the mantras of Ohio State football is that if they say that stuff, you better keep it tight and don't be out running your mouth to the media or to the people on Twitter because you're a little sensitive, Sally. Well, Nevada, good Sunday night show. A lot of info on Carolina. I appreciate you guys for the great super chats. Your final thoughts, Nevada?
No, just looking forward to the start of spring football, man. I think we can officially say that the off season is over. We're into spring football. We're into 2024, and I'm excited. I mean, I can't wait. I've been looking forward to the season as much as I have any season literally ever in my lifetime, and I think I feel like it officially starts on Tuesday and kind of unofficially starts tomorrow. So let's go.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's going to be a great year, as always. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Sunday night. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Absolutely fantastic day for the Bucks to beat Michigan on their senior day. Also, the Lady Bucks lost out at Iowa, but again, great season for them as they get into tournament time. So we appreciate you guys as always. If you guys enjoyed this content, please give us a like. Click subscribe. Again, the subscriptions are huge. We're getting close to 30,000. We're about 400 away. So spread the good word. Share the episode. Text it to your friends. Email it to your friends. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything you guys would like to. We appreciate all of your help with this. So thank you so much. And if you guys like this live show format, please click the alert. The alert will let you get a little ding on your phone, your iPad, your computer, your TV, whatever format you'd like to watch on. You'll get a little alert. It works every single time. It's fantastic. So we appreciate you guys. We'll be back at 7 tomorrow. Again, shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. And also shout out how you watch the show. I'd love to know that. Do you guys watch on your phone, your iPad, your TV, your computer? I asked that on the message board. I love the feedback. It helps us kind of craft the show. So as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to my Southern Ohio boys. As always, we're going to be down there soon going to the river. Excited for that. But as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We're going to see you guys tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Time to go get that work week in. Let's go, Bucks. Spring ball's here. It's about to be awesome. Get on BuckeyeScoop.com because we're going to have all the updates from the first practice on Tuesday. So we appreciate you guys as always. Go Bucks.